Susie King Taylor, Georgia's freedom teacher, nurse, and Civil War witness. There are some lives that history remembers because they were loud. And then there are lives that history remembers because they endured. Susie King Taylor was one of those lives. Born Susanna Susie Baker on August 6, 1848 in Liberty County, Georgia. She entered the world enslaved, but the world she was born into would not be the world she left behind. Through courage, education, service, and memory, she became known to history as Susie King Taylor, a woman whose story reaches far beyond one name, one place, or one moment in time. Her life began in coastal Georgia, a region shaped by slavery, war, the Sea Islands, Gullah Geechee culture, Black resistance, and the long struggle for freedom. Her story connects Liberty County, Savannah, Fort Pulaski, St. Simon's Island, and the larger journey of formerly enslaved people fighting to claim a future that had once been denied to them. As a child, Susie was sent to Savannah to live with her grandmother. In those days, education for enslaved Black people was dangerous. Georgia law and custom tried to keep enslaved people from reading and writing, but knowledge has a way of finding those who hunger for it. Susie learned in secret. Black women taught her. Others helped her continue, and what began as hidden lessons would become one of the most powerful tools of her life. When the Civil War reached coastal Georgia, Susie escaped slavery in 1862 after Union forces began operating in the region. She found Union protection after the capture of Fort Pulaski and later made her way to St. Simon's Island. There, at only 14 years old, her ability to read and write placed her in a rare position. She became a teacher. Not years later, not when she was grown, but as a young girl, still carrying the weight of slavery behind her, she began teaching formerly enslaved children and adults. In a world where literacy had been treated like a crime, Susie made it an act of freedom. She later served with the 1st South Carolina Volunteers, a Black Union regiment that would become the 33rd United States Colored Infantry. Officially, she was listed as a loudress, but history often hides the full weight of a woman's work behind small words. Susie cooked, she cared for the sick and wounded, she taught soldiers to read and write, and during the war, she served as a nurse. Because of this, Susie King Taylor is often remembered as the first Black Army nurse. That title should be handled with care. She was not officially recognized by the Army as a nurse in the same way formal medical staff were recognized. But her nursing service was real. Her work was real. Her testimony was real. And sometimes, history is not found only in official titles. Sometimes, it is found in what people actually did. For Susie, teaching was more than a job. It was a mission. While with the regiment, she taught Black soldiers during their free time. These were men who had once been enslaved, now wearing the uniform of the Union Army, fighting for a freedom that still had to be protected. Reading and writing meant more than letters on a page. It meant independence. It meant dignity. It meant power. After the war, Susie returned to Georgia and opened schools for African American children in Savannah and later in the Midway area. In doing so, she became one of the earliest Black educators in Georgia to openly teach formerly enslaved students after emancipation. But Susie did not only live history, she preserved it. In 1902, her memoir, Reminiscences of My Life in Camp with the 33rd United States Colored Troops, late 1st South Carolina Volunteers, was published in Boston. It remains one of the most important first-hand Civil War accounts written by a Black woman. She is also remembered as the only African American woman known to have published a memoir about her Civil War experiences. Susie King Taylor died in Boston, Massachusetts on October 6, 1912, but her story never truly left Georgia. It remains in Liberty County. It remains in Savannah. It remains near Fort Pulaski and St. Simon's Island. It remains wherever people remember that freedom was not simply given. It was taught, it was nursed, it was written down, it was fought for. Susie King Taylor was born enslaved, but she refused to let slavery define the limits of her life. She learned in secret, she escaped during war, she taught freedom, she served Black Union soldiers, she opened schools, and she left behind a written testimony that speaks more than a century later. The clean historical truth is this: Susie King Taylor was a Georgia-born woman who rose from slavery to become a teacher, nurse, author, and witness to Black freedom during and after the Civil War. Her life is not just Black history. It is Georgia history. It is woman's history. It is military history. It is education history. And above all, it is freedom history. Knowledge is power. Rebirthoftheword.com.
Got a little hype now, can I let it die down? I remember days in the trench. Time to go hard in, time to go all in, time to get my all to this shit. Panamera maxed out, first class flights out, Atlantic to Pacific, yeah, it's lit.